Hey guys, welcome to the third installment of The Art of CQB. This is Tactical Ashigarami TV. Before we go any further, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good jazz. So, today we are going to finally cover the, I wouldn't say last, but the next component of our series of The Art of CQB, where we focus on the critical close quarters fighting elements, right? The things that I wanted to touch on in the last video, which I did mention, which is mindset, strategy, angles, and clearing. So if you guys noticed, what we're doing right now is we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. There's some things coming up that I need to take care of, and I might be a little bit busy, so I wanted to try my best to get this out as swiftly as possible and hopefully make it a little bit more clear, so that way I can kind of answer some questions that you guys really have from an overall aspect. And for those of you guys that have been commenting and responding to the content, really appreciate that as well. Namely, once again, shout outs to Maydaysan Gaming. Thank you for all the feedback on the videos and all the creative criticism and touches, things that I can pretty much improve on, and also just the feedback overall in general. If you guys can check out some of his new content, his new CQB content that he has up, with some good references, with some things that you can pretty much apply to your game, which can improve what you're doing dramatically. So the guns I'm going to be using in this video are the TM Mark 18 Mod 1 GBB, as well as the Umarex VFC Glock 17 Gen 5. That's the gun we're going to be kicking butt with in this vid, courtesy to the guy who is taking the gunfire, little brave soldier. But I decided to pretty much make the decision to feature a pistol and carbine combo in order to answer some questions that you guys had relative to CQB in the last couple of videos from before. And you know, if you guys do notice, I'm playing a little bit aggressive with this guy, and I'm trying to really implement some things that I've been working on, and pretty much overall making a statement by utilizing some of those concepts, which I feel can be effective whether you're using a rifle, pistol, shotgun, subgun, or whatever the case is. Some of those concepts remain the same, and you're going to pretty much be doing a lot of the same thing in those instances. The only thing that really changes over time based on what the situation is or how tight the CQB is going to be is basically, how you're going to adapt to those scenarios and those situations. So yeah, man, we're going to get right into it, and we're going to talk about what we need to in order to get the ball rolling per se. So let's do it. So first thing we're going to go into is mindset. We're going to talk about mindset and why it's so important, and why our thinking in that instinct, right? In that how should I say it? In that instance where what you do basically separates the men from the boys, so to speak. Let me make myself extremely clear and astute, right? It is very important initially to assert dominance if you can, especially in a scenario where there are very few players, because if you do notice with a lot of the skilled players, their performance doesn't really deviate over a period of time, whether they're, even if they're playing in outdoor games. they tend to pretty much to maintain that same pace that they have in the beginning of the game, and they pretty much carry that with them towards the end of the game, and they don't really let up. So there is a mental factor there behind that. So when you have a guy, you can see, especially those games where you see guys are getting tired or they're breathing heavy. In my opinion, the physical aspect is just as important, if not more important, as well. I wouldn't even say really more. The mental aspect is just important, man. You have to work hard physically and mentally, 100%. You cannot leave out that element. So, as you can see in these situations, I'm being extremely cutthroat. So he's going for it, I'm going for it, and we're pretty much pushing each other in a really, really tight space. And as you can imagine, dealing with that one life game mode or that no life game mode, it's like, okay, if you're getting spanked, if you're getting killed, if you're getting shot, you're getting spanked. There's no way around it. There's not like you have like a bunch of guys you can rely on. The round is over, so you have to be assertive. You can't really afford to be pushed back in those situations. So just keep that in mind. If you hesitate in CQB, remember, you will not be effective at all, period. You're going to get run over in any single game type that you go into. So my thing is, you want to practice exercising your confidence, right? Because if you're not confident, you're not going to be able to do the things that you want to do effectively. And it doesn't matter what content you're looking at or what concepts you're focusing on. You're not going to pretty much have that ability to execute what you need when the time is right. So whatever gear you carry, whatever you have, whatever you use, even some of the things that I touched on in the loadouts video, that's just one aspect of it. You have to have the training behind whatever you use in order to make it work for you. So if you want to improve in those aspects, in my opinion, tactical training is a good route. I do have some stuff on my channel that is relative to that, and you can pretty much take bits and pieces from it and see what works for you. And I would also recommend dry firing and familiarizing yourself with that platform before you decide to go out and and go for it. Make sure that you understand exactly what you want and the direction you're trying to go in order to maximize your efficiency and your ability to carry out that mission, whatever that game mode is. You can be effective in that moment, and that's what you want. That's what you're looking for. Strategy. Now, we touched on a little bit of this. Basically, okay, what do you do, or what is okay? My strategy is to be offensive. Okay, guys, what do you guys look to do in CQB, and why is it such an important component? Now, a lot of guys mentioned listening to sounds, which is also very important too, because you got to use your senses. And even in this instance, I was listening. I was very aware of the sounds that I was making, especially when my gear would move, if I was doing, if I was reloading, or when I was switching shoulders. Was very aware of that. So, man, like you have to be on point. Your senses have to be on point, right, in that situation. So that's also a big part. Using what you have, using the cards that you're dealt to be effective in that moment, right? In terms of strategy. Now, as I mentioned before, my strategy was to attack and to be assertive, keep guys on offense, right? If guys are defensive, they're not offensive, they tend to shut down. Same thing applies in this. If you put pressure on guys, that affects everyone differently, but generally, if it's focused and done the right way, you're going to get the job done 100%. Now, your training is going to impact your strategy as well as your ability to adapt to a lot of those moments, right? It's going to be based on how you prepared and what you do beforehand. And you got to remember, you don't meet those expectations. You don't rise to your expectations. You fall to the level of your training. That's how it works. And one of the things that I learned from jiu-jitsu, from all those years back when my black belt coach would always tell me, he said, listen, how you train is how you fight, period. So how you train is pretty much going to, allocate and shape what your fighting style is going to be like in those situations. So it's going to really comprise that direction that you're going to be taking. So if you practice, if you do like really, I don't know how to describe it, but if the way you practice your shooting is not really engaging, you're going to spend a lot of your time hiding in corners, and it's going to be a matter of time before you end up being finished and looking like a spectacle on somebody's GoPro highlight. So this is something you might want to take into consideration that can prevent that from happening to you in that moment. So, right, it's going to pretty much affect how you attack or engage, right? So it's another thing. How you attack and engage is just as important as the attack itself. And as I mentioned before, generally, if you're in a scenario where someone has the drop on you when you're engaging, as I told the guy before, like if you're outgunned, disengage and re-engage, right? Learning when to hold or when to fold, evading is also a part of the dance too, right? It's like a conversation. You got to know, where your cue points are. So keep that in mind and vary your approach. Think about what you're focusing on in that moment in terms of, how you're gonna go forward with that. If you can, I recommend that you take up a pressure approach, or you add pressure to your fighting style in order to make your adversaries on the other side, to make them make mistakes that you can capitalize on. Once you have guys making mistakes, that's going to be a big component of what you're going to have going on, because they're just not going to be able to react in time in order to cover those gaps. And that's going to be just a huge component of what's going to make you successful in those games where you have fewer guys that are pretty much they're going to be playing. And they're going to remember your name because they're going to remember what you did and how it affected what they did. So keep that in mind as well. Now, my catch-all idea behind this pretty much is to assert dominance in the small games and to assist in doing this in larger games, especially for CQB. You can take that into outdoor games, indoor games, whatever the case is, right? If you are generally in a larger game, don't just focus on your individual performance. Your individual performance is not going to always dictate what's going to happen or what the end result is going to be in those matches, right? Now, you can have a lot of different scenarios where guys are coming in, and you see this all the time where good players will end up on bad teams, right? In whatever situation, what you would consider a bad team to be, and it happens, right? And some individually they do well, but in terms of meeting the objective and meeting that standard, the teamwork in that situation is very poor, and that affects everyone, because there's only so much you can do if you're one skilled player versus maybe 5 or 6 maybe half skilled players, whatever you would consider a half skilled player to be. that's still going to be a disadvantage for you regardless of how good you are, because it's shooting at the end of the day. The next area that I'm going to talk about is going to be angles. So this is pretty much going to be the trickiest part in terms of what I'm going to be talking about here. So I did a tactical training course last year in the summer at Hazar's in Aichi. And some of the things that we did cover, Hexera Airsoft, which was formerly Hazar. So, but I'm not sure if there's actually going to be an instance where he's going to be doing it again, the owner. So, it's something that we do talk about every day, and we just kind of, bounce back and forth and say, yeah, it'll be a good idea to do it. But anyway, going forward with that, we did communication, teamwork communication and so close quarters fighting, close quarters team fighting, communication, and also we did force on force training, which was really cool because even in the States, in most scenarios, force on force training is like really expensive, like to do those classes. Normally they're like for the day, and you have to pay maybe $400 or $500 for the session or something like that. So we were able to do that for a relatively low fee. And one of the main aspects that we looked at was called the arc of fire, that every shooter pretty much has, access to. And pretty much your arc of fire would cover what your angle of fire would be, pretty much for every person that's on your squad, where you're aiming reticle, where you would have access to in terms of shooting, and understanding that, your enemy, whoever you're shooting at, has that as well, and you have to understand where that angle is. So basically, the angle that you're going to be able to cover is going to be based on movement and position, right? So as you move and shift and change and vary your position, that's going to affect where you're going to be able to aim and what you're going to be able to do. So just be wary of where your angle is, where your teammates, where they're aiming, where they're looking, what are you covering, and the angles that are being covered on the other side. And you take that into consideration when you peek as well, because it's very important to have that in order to assert dominance and to know when you don't have that right away. So once that angle is being seized, you don't have access to it. So when you try and push into someone's angle, their arc of fire, in that sense, you risk putting yourself out there where you can pretty much make that mistake, you get capitalized on, and then you get hit, and then you're out that round. And we're going to look at it from a survival game perspective, right? Because that's what this is generally about, and not getting hit. Because once you're hit, you're out. And if you're out, you're dead. And, generally here, if you're playing in Japan, especially, as many people have mentioned, you are essentially done for the round, and you might feel that you're wasting your money. So these are some of the things that can help. Now, the last aspect we're going to cover is going to be clearing and pieing, which is important because there's a lot of material you can look at that's going to help you improve your footwork and movement between cover, and understanding where your angles are going to be. So if you're looking at a door, pretty much standing back, giving yourself that angle where you can kind of peek in without giving too much of yourself, without offering too much of your body as a target. And there's so much content on this. I was actually looking at some of Maydaysan stuff as well, and he mentioned Project Gecko. I want to check that out too. But we did a lot of pieing practice too in that tactical training, so that's very important, utilizing your footwork and understanding where your positioning is, and improving your transitions. Some of the things I'd recommend on that you do, right, if you can, the switching of your main firearm and your transitioning from main weapon, from your rifle to pistol or subgun to pistol, that's also going to be a big benefit to you as well, especially in close quarters. And as you can see in a lot of cases, I did this a lot when I was engaging the guy in the video, and I do it generally in most of my videos where, you know, I'll shoot with the rifle, and then, you know, if things get hot, you know, I'll draw the pistol, which is a little bit easier to use offensively and defensively interchangeably in close quarters. And you got to have the training behind it in order to use it, you know, with confidence. So spend that time on perfecting that. It took me a while to really get transitions down. I'd say like about 2 years, honestly. Within the last year, I actually started drilling it a lot, going, you know, with the M4 and the FNX 45, which is a, you know, bit of a thicker gun, but working on clearing and transitioning with the sling and going and drawing the pistol quickly enough and asserting that position at that moment and getting that kill in close quarters. So your ability to switch is important. And there will be times when you do have to draw it in big games as well too. So it's important to understand that aspect of using it defensively, so you don't get dominated. Or if you run out of ammo, which does happen, and you know your main runs dry, and sometimes, you know, maybe you don't have that mag or your reload speed isn't, you know, up to par. I guarantee you, if you work on that draw speed is gonna probably save you in terms of, you know, being able to defend yourself in that moment, even in real life, right? But they always say, you know, working on those emergency reloads is important, because that emergency reload might be able to save your life, but sometimes things happen. So that's pretty much it. I feel like I touched on pretty much all the things I wanted to. I want to thank everyone, you know, once again for supporting the little mini series that we've done here. And I'm not quite sure about what I'm going to be doing with this, so I'm just going to kind of leave that window open. Maybe I might continue it. More than likely I might continue it. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I want to thank everyone once again for watching the content and for supporting and for just pretty much being very consistent in giving feedback. And once again, I want to push this, guys, so don't be shy about, you know, some of the questions that you have relative to anything that you see on here that you have, you know, questions about. I think it's really important to push that knowledge and to get as much questions answered as possible relative to things that not only like that relative to CQB in general, even Airsoft per se, but, you know, not since this is an Airsoft video. Any questions that you have, you know, is 100% fine. It's okay. So feel free to ask away. I do have other content coming up relative to some other things, other aspects that I think are really important for Airsoft as well, for beginners and things like that. And some questions about Glocks. Once again, Jesus Christ, the Glock questions. Guys, just, oh my God, just bear with me. There's just so much. Anyway, so once again, thank you guys so much for, I keep saying this, for just supporting, guys. Don't forget to, you know, like the videos. It's really important. We got to get this stuff out. I need to get this stuff out. Thank you guys again. So take care. Thank you guys. Love you guys. See you soon. Once again.